Good morning, my beautiful babes and babettes. I'm your resident active advocate, and today I would like to embark with you on a new series, and my introductory video is to be called, What is Infantilization? Well, infantilization is a word that's very difficult to spell, for one thing, but conceptually, infantilization is the phenomenon in which a person with a disability basically is treated as an infant or treats themselves as an infant. This effect can come from all sides. It can also come, as I say, from the person themselves. It is a learned behavior, or rather, it is a behavior that is not unlearned. So when it comes to the person with the disability, if they do not unlearn infantilization, ostensibly what's going on is that they are not allowing themselves to grow up. This is true of caretakers as well. This is true even of friends. This can be true of friends. This can be true of educators. Basically, anyone who says that you need to stay safe, you need to stay comfortable, you need to stay more or less out of the way. Not specifically out of any one person's way, but basically just out of the way, quotation marks, in general, for the sake of your own safety, well-being, and happiness. It may not be, according to infantilization, it may not be a good idea for you as the person with the disability to become involved in, quote, real life or, quote, adult life, because sometimes people with disabilities are framed or viewed as not being capable of handling the, quote, real world. Not only is this a form of ableism, but it is also, in my opinion, at least somewhat abusive. Oftentimes, especially when coming from older figures and from caretakers, infantilization is meant with a good heart. People don't want to see their loved ones getting hurt. People don't want to see their loved ones fail. People don't want to see their loved ones being made fun of by others or being ostracized by society. These sentiments all come from a place of love, but they also come from the pre-made assumption that these things, that these bad things we want to prevent for our loved ones with disabilities, that these things will happen to them if they are allowed to go out into the real world quotation marks. So that's the basic sentiment behind infantilization, but there are multiplicitous ways in which this effect can manifest. As I say, it can happen on both sides of the equation. The person with the disability can infantilize themselves, and the people in that person's life can infantilize them. Now, I'm going to distinguish, though, between loving and malicious infantilization. Loving infantilization is what I just described to you. You don't want to see the person you love get hurt in any way, shape, or form by society in putting themselves out into society. They make themselves vulnerable. And according to the infantilizing mind, people with disabilities are already, quote, more vulnerable than the, quote, average population. Right. So that's the loving but misunderstanding view. In the malicious method of infantilizing someone, though, when it comes to this, I think that there is actually more awareness but less heart. So the awareness lies in the fact that I know what I am doing. I am intentionally saying, you cannot belong, you are different, you are other, therefore I will not treat you as an equal. But I know that I am doing it out of malice, out of hate, out of prejudice. And the problem with prejudice, too, is that it is also ignorant, but not as ignorant as some forms of love can be. With prejudice comes fear, with fear comes prejudice. I do believe that these things are symbiotic. You can't have hate without fear. I do believe that fear is the root of pretty much any other evil. Why do we hate? Well, because we fear the quote other. Why are we greedy? Well, because we fear to go without. Why are we gluttonous? Because we fear hunger. Why are we envious? Because we fear that others will be viewed in higher esteem than we will. So on, so forth, right? I do believe that the root of all, quote, sin is fear. That at the very bottom, because that is one of humanity's lowest impulses, is fear. And the only way to get over these imposed restrictions that we put on people, the fear of them or the fear for them, we have to get rid of these things. The fear of them will lead to the malicious form of infantilization. The fear for them will lead to the loving form of infantilization. There is a very important distinction to be made here, because the loving people want you to belong, but fear that you can't. The malicious people fear you and therefore do not want you to belong. So these are diametrically opposed to one another, but they have the same effect. Tomorrow, I would like to begin talking to you about the loving form of infantilization. The next day, I will talk to you about the malicious form of infantilization. But these both come from without. The next day after that, I will be talking to you about infantilization that comes from within, that comes from the person with the disability themselves, and so on and so forth throughout the series, because there are many different ways in which a person can be infantilized. It's not just an intellectual thing, it's not just an emotional thing, it can be physical as well. And when it comes to the physical aspects of infantilization, there can be some bad things that happen. So I'm warning you now that if you have problems with discussions of eugenics, that one's going to be difficult. But we're not going to get there for a little while. I intend to make this a pretty meaty series, and I hope that y'all enjoy, because as I have said in my primer videos to this series, because I've been kind of talking this one up for a while, this is a very important topic to understand throughout wider society so that we can stop it. It's important that we stop this effect, because with infantilization comes inequality. Without infantilization comes equality. It's one of the leading factors against our equality. And I don't see that as a good thing. So that is what we are going to do throughout this series. We are going to describe infantilization, and we are going to attempt to work our way out of it. And it'll be great, and it'll be a learning experience for all of us involved, including me. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, queries, or snide remarks, please leave them in the comments section down below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, because this stuff is important. I can't emphasize this enough. Thank you very much, and I will see y'all tomorrow. Mwah!